All discussions and interactions are meant for educational and entertainment purposes only. They're not intended to breach the ATA Code of Conduct, single out any student or educator, or diminish professional integrity in any way. I'm Conrad Drover. Join me as I sit down with inspiring professionals from diverse fields to gain valuable insight from their experiences and knowledge to help me grow as both an educator in the classroom and as a person in all areas of my life. This is Professional Development. Welcome back, everyone. Today, we conclude our conversation with Neil Sandham, the experienced science educator and lifelong learner we had on last week. For part 2 of our conversation, we dive into one of the most challenging questions for teachers today. How do we meaningfully integrate Indigenous perspectives in science? Neil offers thoughtful insight into shifting away from performative checkboxes towards truly understanding different worldviews, and how changing our teaching isn't just about what we say, but how we think. We talk about the importance of making science less Eurocentric, creating spaces for diverse contributions to knowledge, and why the question itself might need rethinking. We also explore Neil's forensic science course, a locally developed high school option that brings inquiry-based learning to life, from planting crime scene evidence to teaching real-world investigation techniques. Neil shows how science education can be hands-on, creative, and deeply engaging. And yes, we also geek out over Spider-Man, the art of teaching, burnout, and the power of linking your passion to your practice. Whether you're a teacher, student, or a lifelong comic book fan, this episode has something for everyone. If you enjoy the episode, be sure to follow, subscribe, and leave a review. It really helps the podcast grow. Now, let's dive in. Moving on, just an easy question now. Okay. How do you implement FNMI into your classroom? That was sort of a joke because it's always the most difficult question that you always interview. Okay, actually, I wanted to talk to you about this.
He asks the white guy.
Yeah, because I remember when we shared that workspace, the collab space. You mentioned that you had a book that sort of explained again, Indigenous perspectives in science.
Yeah, Blackfoot physics.
Okay, and again, it's my 6th year teaching, right? Old senior citizen right here, you know. And like I have relationships with Indigenous people, like because I grew up with my step family and stuff like that. And I still struggle implementing Indigenous perspectives. I do a lot of like storytelling. I try to do that, and just try to, the way I teach, not necessarily what I teach, is sort of how I embraced it. But every time on a professional growth plan or an interview, like the number one thing I say is like, I am still trying to improve it, right? And I thought back to that when you mentioned that book. I was wondering if you could just briefly explain what that was, and then, you know, go on your tangent about.
Okay. I think, as I understand it from my perspective, one of the biggest problems is that we're still viewing this from a Eurocentric view of prove that you are implementing FNMI practices, prove how you are considering the Indigenous perspective. Whereas, as I understand it, the whole point to the Indigenous perspective isn't necessarily talking about it, but it's the way that you think about the universe, the way that you think about the circular nature of existence. And maybe this is trite, but if you're thinking about law of conservation of matter, law of conservation of mass, if you're using these concepts to teach stoichiometry, to teach within chemical reactions, I don't think it's saying, as a lot of administrators want you to show. I don't think it's saying, now here's this chemical compound that was often used as a salve by First Nations people in the Northern Woodlands Cree group.
Tell me you're white without telling me you're white.
Right?
Yeah.
But I think it's more of just changing the way that we think about what's out there. As I understand within the Indigenous perspective, teachers don't stand there and tell people what to do. When people do something, they get the results, and they go to the teacher and say, "Why didn't this work?" And the teacher goes, yeah, why do you think it didn't work? And inherently, I think, isn't that what we try to do as teachers?
Like inquiry-based learning.
Pretty much. I don't know. I think I have this discussion with administrators every now and then when they say, "Oh, so Neil, what do you do to incorporate this?" And I tell them that's the wrong question. And I'm not sure what the right question is, but I don't feel like that's the right question. Show me this lesson plan. Because I don't think it's about, I'm going to take this moment to teach this history of the Siksika in this region, you know. I don't know. I think we definitely struggle with that. My second year of teaching, I had a contract with the Morley Ed Authority, and I taught out at the Morley Community School. I taught with the junior high staff. I was a second-year teacher. I knew nothing. And what I knew about Indigenous people was the people that I knew growing up and hanging out in Gleason and Clooney. And I, as a little kid, boy, the 70s were a very racist time in Western Canada. But as a little kid, I didn't necessarily know much about different cultures. I just knew that here are some kids playing in the back alley. I'm going to go play with them, you know, and they would accept you. You were kids and you played together, and you learn people talk a little bit differently, and people have slightly different rules for the games, but you learn the new games and you learn the new rules. And somewhere along the line, we grew up and we got set in our ways, and we stopped actually listening to other people and the way that other people think or the way that other people act, which is maybe the essence of what we're really trying to get at with the FNMI umbrella. What we're really trying to get at, I think, is being accepting of people's cultures and embracing the different ways that people think, which kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier about, you know, has learning changed? Has parenting changed? Has teaching changed? I don't know. Maybe the biggest challenge of all, at the risk of going down the road of hippie slogans from the 1960s, but maybe the biggest challenge of all is that it's accepting and understanding the way different people think and view the world. So as a science teacher, trying to incorporate FNMI ideologies or views of the universe, it's a challenge, but what am I trying to say? It feels an awful lot like another performative European assessment model to say, okay, show me that you're doing this, whether you're actually doing it or not, whether it's actually meaningful or not, with it, just jump through this hoop. So I can check it off in my box, so my area director can check it off on their box, so the area superintendent can check it off on their box, so the associate superintendent can check it off on their box, so that, you know what I mean?
I think what you're saying is like the evaluation doesn't, like what you're being evaluated on, it doesn't really match up of what the true meaning of it is. Like, so the way I've rationalized it was that I want to incorporate the Indigenous value, like the perspective on it. So grade 7s, we do the carbon cycle. And so I talked a lot about, again, like what you said, the law of conservation of matter, right? You can assign like traditional values to how people perceive that. Like I told them, like I'm saying it in dork right now, right? That's what I told the kids. Like this is the dork. Like you can follow that carbon molecule everywhere where it goes, right? But I was telling them, but from like an Indigenous, like let's say Plains Cree perspective, right? It just like it's, and like you can even, I think I alluded, I I lowered it down a bit to like the Lion King. It's the circle of life,
Okay.
right? Like,
Yep.
you're using someone else's energy. You're using something's energy, whether it be like an animal or like the plants and stuff like that. And you have like a value to use that energy well for like a good purpose, right? Which it sort of butts heads with like the Eurocentric, like Christian mentality of like everything's under dominion to us, right? There's like a balance and there's like an equal say.
Sure.
It's like socialism of the universe or whatever, right? Stuff like that. So that's how I try to incorporate it. But what you're saying really makes me like think twice for when I'm talking to like new teachers and administrators alike, that we might have to just, I don't know, I'm always thinking like change how we teach with it,
Sure.
right? I don't need to change the curriculum to implement like, oh, like, aspirin is tree bark and tree bark,
Right.
is used to that, right?
Yeah.
Like there could just be a different perspective on appreciating chemistry,
Sure.
something like that. So yeah, interesting.
I think one of the ways that I try to bring this into my practice is I think it's necessarily the wrong question. And it's not how do we make our practice more FNMI? How do we make it less Eurocentric?
Right.
So when I'm teaching chemistry and I'm teaching periodic table of elements, Lavoisier and Mendeleev weren't the originators of the periodic table of elements. The Western Europeans were the slow kids on the continent for centuries. And other places, the center of learning for centuries was Persia, or what we now call Iraq. The center of learning of literature, mathematics. Trigonometry is nothing new. And it was around before the ancient Greeks and after the ancient Greeks. Pythagorean's theorem was nothing new. The idea that the earth isn't flat, it's not, kids. It's not flat. It's not round either. It's a spherical obloid shape. But anyways, the proof of it wasn't just necessarily by some ancient Greek, but repeated versions of mathematics from scholars in the Middle East, in Iraq, in Korea, in China, in Japan, in Africa, many parts of Africa. Scholars were able to use math, which we teach in Western society, that this was developed by people in the 1970s, in the 1700s or in the 1400s. It was around for centuries and even millennia before that. So I wonder if maybe the question shouldn't be, what are you doing to make your practice more Indigenous centered, but what are you doing to make your practice less Eurocentered?
Right. Like, yeah, just, I guess like that has to do with those outdated textbooks, right? Because a lot of teachers like don't know a lot of that because the textbooks don't say a lot of that, right? So I guess like giving appreciation that the stuff we do know now that sometimes maybe we frame as a European win, it comes from a lot of other like origins. And like maybe we should put that more at the forefront when we're teaching it, and like just show appreciation that like multiple cultures have contributed to this.
Yeah.
But so the one thing I do want to talk about your teaching perspectives and like how you teach it, because I see your posts on TikTok and Instagram sometimes and Facebook that you're really into teaching. Like that's what I love about it, right? Because there is sometimes, and it's almost annoying as a teacher who's like really tired sometimes, that you're like, oh man, I'm collecting all this stuff, and I'm like, oh man, I'm trying to survive the week here. But I love it because it gives me inspiration, because I'm like, oh man, I can't do that, but I'm going to do something that's going to be cool. Like I'm going to start a podcast with my kids, or they're going to do it. And the one thing that I really love seeing you do when I get the little updates is the quite opposite of space, but it's the forensic science. I love when you post updates about that. So again, for the people that haven't been in school for a decade or whatever, and that they think math, science history, whatever, they've never heard of an elective called forensic science. So could you explain what that is?
Sure.
CSI, the game, the movie?
Yeah, sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Forensic science is exactly what it sounds like. True crime podcasts are super popular with, well, I guess with everybody, certainly with students. Forensic science is a locally designed course. So in Alberta, a locally designed course means it's not a curriculum that's been designed by Alberta Education, but it's been designed by a local school board and approved by Alberta Education. And there's a lot of them out there. So forensic science is the application of science skills to crime scene investigation. It's part of the grade 6 science curriculum. It's one of the 5 units in the grade 6 science curriculum, or I suppose that science curriculum is changing. I don't know if it is anymore. It's exactly what it sounds like. So when I started teaching forensic science at my school, it was based on an Edmonton public course. So that course was approved by the provincial government. There is a curriculum. There are standards. There are, for those who are part of the outcomes-based assessment group, OBA, there aren't those types of outcomes attached to it, but there certainly could be. It would be a very simple matter of taking outcomes from chemistry and physics and biology and putting them into this. But you would also be including outcomes from legal studies, which is a provincial curriculum, putting that in, from justice studies, which is a locally designed curriculum. Let's see, how would I describe it? So essentially, it's teaching the science behind crime scene investigation and how can we apply scientific skills, those inquiry skills of controlling an investigation so you're only changing one variable, how to analyze data, how to gather data, and trying to teach some real world forensic science skills. Here's my example. Today started one of my favorite labs with my Forensics 25 class. So these are grade 11 students. I call it the case of the sinister sock. Dun, dun, dun. Right, which the name probably came from an old Hardy Boys novel. But look that one up, kiddies. Hardy Boys. Anyways, Sean Cassidy. Yeah, you wouldn't.
I don't get it at all. Yeah.
That's okay. I'm still jealous of his hair. Yep.
I'll have to look his hair up now.
So what I did for this, and it's nothing revolutionary, it's nothing new. So in this lab, I take socks and I go around the schoolyard and I plant evidence and then bring them back in. I set up the socks around the school with evidence cards. I assign students groups. Their job is to find the piece of evidence that corresponds to their group number. And then they have to, it's a sock, they have to examine it. So I teach them crime scene photography. I teach them crime scene sketching. I teach them to secure the area first. A really important lesson because this afternoon, I forgot to tell the custodians I was doing this. And one of the cleaners, bless her heart, went, "Who left this dirty sock in the hallway, for crying out loud?" And she left the evidence card where it was, but picked up the sock and put it in the garbage and swept up the surrounding evidence. And I'm going, good for you for doing your job well. I appreciate that. But dang it. And so the skills that I'm teaching them are on top of that, how investigators would gather trace evidence, how they'd analyze trace evidence. And we're incorporating microscope skills and biology skills. Identify the plant matter. How do we do that? Use your cell phone. Take a picture of it. Push on that button. The built-in AI will automatically identify the plant species. You don't have to look it up. If there's enough of the leaf there or enough of the fronds, the needles there, the AI can identify the species of plant. Ultimately, what they have to do then next week is they have to identify the primary crime scene based on that trace evidence. So now go around the schoolyard. Okay, your AI identified this as juniper. Where do we have juniper on the Croxford school grounds? Look around. Oh, well, there's a bunch of places in front of the school. So now specifically, what else is there? Oh, that's a rabbit turd. Okay, we've got hares all around the schoolyard. Where would the hares be? Would they be in the parking lot? No. Would they be,
I think that is like the absolutely like quintessential conduit for inquiry-based learning.
I think so.
So like you're trying to solve a mystery.
Yep.
And like I love the narratives you bring into it. Because that's cool, because kids love narratives.
Yeah.
They love the story of it. And that's what I was doing with like I'm trying to do with science.
Right.
You make a story of it because they're not going to remember the facts, but they remember the story. And then when you get to university, they call it the process.
Sure.
But it's the story of it, right? So I always like updating because like you get to I always like getting the updates from you, because the thing with forensic science is you can have so much fun with it as a teacher, because you get that, like, the outcomes are embedded, like what you're trying to teach them with the science skills is embedded in whatever thing you make up. Like you can make up like the funniest story that they don't get. Like it's just like silliness, like references from your childhood or like jokes that you like and stuff like that. They're none the wiser, but they're like, this is weird, this is fun though. And like you're like laughing at it that they get that reference. And like it's the hook. It's engaged. It's no longer just science class.
Yeah.
It's we have a mystery to solve, guys. Come on, gang. Like, and yeah, like one of those kids in the group is like Shaggy, right?
What is like Scoob?
Exactly, right?
What you doing for a Scooby snack?
But man, they can hold the thing while the other kids are like, you know,
Yeah.
I love like group work. I've sort of got into a different place, because when I was in my first year teacher, I was like, everyone needs to hit this, and this.
Yeah.
When I'm working with the film and media stuff, right? There's going to be kids at different levels. And like we were just talking about meeting them where they're at.
Sure.
Hold the boom mic, man.
Yeah.
Like just be a part of it,
Yeah.
right? Because when you're doing the post-production, when you're editing, and the kid that's not really good with computers, or he's not, you know, confident to be on camera, he's just helping out with the sound, holding something, right?
Sure.
He's going to sit down when they're all sitting there editing, and his buddy is going to be editing or something like that. And he's going to pay attention to him more than he's going to pay attention to me, right? And so giving everyone a role, right? And I feel like forensic science, you can give people roles. You can literally role play.
Right.
Like you're the detective, right? You're like, and then, so yeah, I really love what you're doing with that, but I would not like like every time I think about, oh man, I would be sweet to start it. I don't think I could, because like I just don't, aside from the CSI I watched when I was younger, like Miami was like my favorite.
Sure. Okay.
Horatio. He was good. I don't know enough about it to like start it, right?
I didn't know much about forensic science either, even 8 years ago. I've only been teaching forensic science for maybe 4 years, 5 years. I didn't know much about it when I started teaching, but I learned. And my first couple of times teaching it, my first couple of years, it was terrible. It was so bad.
Well, when you don't know it, right, you kind of fall back on the basics of teaching.
Sure.
Like the lecture, the worksheets or whatever, because you're not really sure how to expand it, because you don't know what's on the next slide.
Sure.
Sort of thing, right? So there's hope.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, I have to bring this up because now I forgot what I was just going to bring up, but I remembered it and then I forgot it. Then I remembered it. Now I do. So, on the podcast I was on last year, and the things that I've asked some of my guests is like, what are some things that in your schooling, in your middle school, high school, that really encourage you to be who you are today? And I remember, because I have had a really good middle school teacher, Mr. Gillowitz. Hello. He's going to hate me for mentioning his name, but whatever. Coolest guy in the world. And he's just real about it, right? And a lot of my teaching philosophy is based on what he does.
Oh, okay.
And when I think I mentioned it, I was talking about this to you last year or the year before, and I was like, I know you can't really you can't learn from someone that you don't respect. And I remember you going, yeah, you can, because like you had like, I don't know the exact story, but you had like an awful teacher and you learned exactly what not to do.
Yeah, I would say that's accurate. And I won't name names, but in my junior high years, I did have a couple of teachers, one who killed science for me. And I love teaching science. I love it. I was always interested in science. But I had a couple of teachers in junior high who literally killed science for me because of the way that they taught. They taught with notes. And you'd come in and you'd sit down. Back in those days, there were chalkboards, and there's chalkboards on all four walls of the room. And you started writing from this chalkboard, and you had to finish all the way here. And then the teacher would lecture while you're writing, and then after you're done writing. And I'm a terrible writer. I'm very sloppy when I'm in a hurry, and I can never finish the notes. When I had science, I could never go home for lunch because I had to come in at lunch to finish copying the notes. Do we learn by taking notes? Some people do. Is that what science is all about? For me, no. Maybe it is, and maybe that's why I didn't get a science degree. But for me, science is about the discovery, the experimentation. It's the stories, like you were saying. It's the corny stories about this scientist or this research project that turned into something else that, we realize, wait a minute. So this blood pressure medication actually has a more popular use for things and is actually now commonly prescribed to adolescents with heart conditions.
Oh, wow.
I just read that fairly recently. So, I think I learned. Now, I learned what things I don't want to do. I don't want to lecture all the time and do notes all the time and yell at students all the time and be really mean and really strict. But at the same time, I also had a teacher whose name I will mention, Jackie Martin. She'll never see this, but anybody out there who ever had Ms. Martin for science absolutely knows what I'm talking about. An amazing teacher. And it was because she had such a passion for science, such a passion for learning, such a passion for what she was doing. She had a grade 9 science option class. We got to do different things. And I remember very clearly a lesson where we worked with Bunsen burners to melt glass tubes into shapes.
Nice.
What were the science objectives? What were the measurable objectives? How did this fit the curriculum? It didn't. But what it encouraged was inquiry, finding the joy in science, finding the fun of science. Sometimes science is hard. There's no question. There's no getting around.
Sometimes it has to be hard. Like there's lots of stuff.
It has to. I know my forensic students roll their eyes, but before we can do the fun labs, I have to teach them how to do crime scene sketches. I have to teach them how to use their cameras properly and effectively to get clear pictures of evidence from different angles and different perspectives using lighting, things like that. Is that science? Well, it's a science skill. It's inquiry skills, right? So, yeah, in my junior high years, I learned from teachers that I didn't like the way that they taught. I learned what not to do. And from Ms. Martin, I learned what's best. And after many years of teaching and self-reflection, I learned how to balance those with me and my personality and my ego. Kids know when we're full of crap.
Yep.
Kids know when we're being inauthentic. And kids know when you have a passion for media and podcasting, when you have a passion for space science. Kids know that and they respect that. You know, even the roughest kids, the hardest kids to teach, will respect you when you're not feeding them a line. When they can tell that you're sincere, you really mean this, you really find this interesting. They know that, they respect that, and they respond to that.
I was just having a conversation that was with an educational assistant, I think. Or, no, he was a calculus guy. And we were talking about teacher burnout. And we're like, we talked about some low-cost solutions for teacher burnout. And one of the things that popped up, I don't know if he said it or I said it, but it was like linking the teacher with their passion, right? So I don't mind spending the extra hour after school working on this stuff.
Yeah.
This is fun. But if I have to do something like, again, I enjoy middle school science. I do. But there is a limit of how much volunteer time I'm going to take to do that.
Sure.
Right? Because I'm tired sometimes. But it is so easy for me to get locked in doing this, setting up the set for my kids to have like a podcast about Toy Story, right? I'm like, sorry, Olivia, I'll be back in like put dinner in the fridge for me, please. Like I'm doing this. Like, right?
Yep.
And it's easy. Like I don't get burned out by this.
Yeah.
And I think like I can't remember where I've seen these stats, so they're probably fake or whatever. But um I think it was like Steve Magnus or for a sports physiologist was talking about burnout, and he was saying people do not get burnt out by how much work they have on their plate. They get burnt out when they feel like they don't have meaningful work on their plate.
Yeah.
And so you can be really busy and never burnt out if you're engaged and in it, right? And I think you can also look back at like how are your students doing in their class? Do they hate it? Do they not? Are they engaged, right?
Right.
But it is if someone's engaged and finds our work meaningful, and of course we're teachers, so we find every subject we teach meaningful. Like the student's education is always meaningful. But when you're like sitting here and you're like, oh, I have to teach, about the pistil and the plant again, and like the sexual organs of a flower, and you're sitting there and you're like, how do I make this engaging for kids? And you're falling asleep trying to do it.
Yep.
That burns people out sometimes when you're doing that for 5 different classes, right? But when you link a teacher to their passion, that burnout doesn't happen. And I'll say this again because I've said it on another podcast. I knew a guy in Fort Mac, and he told me, if you can't think of the lesson the 15 minutes on your way to class, walking to class, you're probably teaching the wrong thing, right? Because like if you're really into it, man, like if I was not prepped for Comtech film studies,
Sure.
I could like, as I'm making my coffee, what the heck am I going to do? Teach the kids today. I could think of something right away, and it would be cool. It'd be interesting, right?
Sure.
So, do you think there's any merit to that thinking?
Sort of. Let me put the question
Sort
to
of.
you. Could you have done that 6 years ago? Could you have come up with an idea and a lesson in 15 minutes while making your morning coffee 6 years ago?
Right. I guess.
Or has those 6 years of you practicing, you have the craft, you know how to engage students, you know intrinsically now the things you need to do, the opening set, the sparklers to get their attention, the hooks to bring them in. You know how to differentiate that lesson inherently because you've practiced that every day, 6 shows a day, 5 days a week with a captive audience, but you've honed your craft. And 6 years later, you can do that. I would not recommend first-year teachers trying that.
Right.
I would not recommend second-year teachers trying that. But I agree. Some of the best ideas I come up with for labs are, like you said, while I'm brushing my teeth, while I'm packing my lunch, thinking to myself, man, what I have planned for today is boring. I want to do something different. And it just somehow comes to me, some sort of inspiration. It goes, bing, well, what do you want to do? More importantly, what do you want students to do? Learning is an action word. It's not a sedentary thing. It's not a passive absorption of information. What do the kids want to do? And how can I make that happen? And that's how I structure my forensic science class. And I have a grade 9 science option. And the kids say, oh, Sandham, I've got your grade 9 science option next quarter. What are we going to do? I don't know. You tell me. And the kids tell me what things they want to do. And I just make it happen. Can we launch rockets? Okay. Give me some time to put stuff together. Can we look at serial killers? Okay. Give me some time to organize it so that people aren't just wasting time or being silly, But so, yes, I do think that there's merit to being able to come up with something on the spur of the moment, but it's only because we have already learned the structure and the format and the basic skills. And that's a sign that you are mastering your craft.
Right. So you have to, the art of teaching should be like refined through experience and work and just like being in the game long enough to be comfortable with it and have confidence in it. But we both agree that when you've already accomplished like a foundational skill set in teaching, yes, you can go into classroom and you can grab someone's lesson plan and you can teach any subject pretty well because you understand the structure, you understand the activating, the hook, engaging, inquiry, discussion, stuff like that. You know how to organize that.
Right.
But when it's intertwined and molded with a passion of yours,
Right.
that's where the real magic happens in the classroom. And yes, you could work 100, 200 days a year on being a very skilled teacher with years of experience that knows how to do it and knows how to jump through every hoop to get the kids engaged. But if you're not engaged, if you're not, I guess, passionate about what you're teaching, then burnout can happen.
Sure.
Whereas the passion, I find, is a really low cost organizational thing. You could be like, okay, this guy likes teaching this, let's put him there.
Sure.
This person likes teaching that.
Yep.
And it seems obvious,
Right.
but like I've seen administration not do that, not be able to do that. Like put the wrong teacher in the wrong class.
Sure.
And it works, but does it work well enough? And maybe it works perfectly from the outside in, but then that teacher's just like inside a bit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So yeah, a little low cost. Like, does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
If you can do that, because the basics still need to be covered.
Yeah.
Right. And we still have a teacher shortage in Alberta. We've had one for 30 years. We can't necessarily find somebody with a passion for teaching the Youth Criminal Justice Act. It's important. It's part of the curriculum. Kids need to know that.
Yeah.
Maybe there is somebody out there. Are there enough of those people for every junior high school or middle school in the province?
Yeah.
Are there enough of those living in Edson or Fort McMurray or Standard, Alberta? Probably not. So somebody's got to fill in. But so I don't fault administrators for not necessarily being able to do that. To some extent, you're also, you have to work within the passions of your staff. If nobody has that passion, you still need to teach it. And it's important that kids learn about the YCJA,
But I could bring the podcast to the YCJ
Sure.
class.
Sure.
And we're going to have debates about it and talk about it. Right. So I guess someone who spoke at the Croxford convocation when I was there, he said, don't follow your passion, but bring your passion to where you're going.
Right.
And I think that's where I was trying to get at that.
Yeah.
So whatever you're teaching, you got to bring a little bit of you into it.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay. In professional development with Mr. Drover, we have a little segment, and it is a pop quiz.
Ooh.
The ding, ding, ding. There's sound effects. They're added on later, right? Ooh. We don't have the budget for live sound effects.
That's fair. Yeah.
But basically, I pick 5 questions that have either from my interest or what I've given my grade 8 students.
Okay.
And I quiz you and the guest to see if they know it.
Okay.
When I work with a lot of higher level science teachers, this sucks because I have middle school science, so they usually crush it. I try to mix it up a bit for you.
Okay.
Right? So are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay. So question 1. Which energy system is primarily used for short, explosive movements like sprinting or weightlifting? Is it A, aerobic system, B, anaerobic glycolysis, C, ATP, PC, so phosphocreatine system, or D, oxidative system?
I had absolutely no idea. Let's see. I am going to go with my limited knowledge. I want to say between C or D. I'll pick C.
Pick C. So phosphocreatine. Final answer?
Final answer.
No. Yes, you're correct. I was thinking he's going to pick glycolysis, but yes, no, the creatine phosphate, phosphocreatine, that gives you that 10 seconds of burstful energy. I was never a sprinter, but 800 meters, that's your first 10 seconds.
Oh, okay.
If you don't use it, you lose it really.
Right.
So just get out there, get settled. First 50 to 100 meters, you should really get out there and settle your position. Because if you don't, you can't really utilize that later in the race. So, yeah, and it doesn't produce a lot of CO2 like glycolysis.
Okay.
So it's free energy. free, right? And oxidative is aerobic, right?
Sure.
So cool. Okay, I stumped you on one. That's happy. I'm happy. All right. Question 2.
I got one.
I'm wondering how you're gonna get these last couple of questions.
Okay.
Question 2. Why do we feel the urge to breathe? Is it A, a lack of oxygen in the lungs? Is it B, a buildup of carbon dioxide in the blood? C, the need to increase heart rate? Or D, a decrease in nitrogen levels in the body?
Wow. Again, I admit I have no idea. I'm going to go with B, the buildup of CO2 in the blood.
Final answer?
Final answer.
Correct.
Oh, 2 for 2.
Yeah, there you go. Ding, ding, ding. I always tell this to my grade 10s when we're talking about, we're in the biology unit. I always tell them that if you were in a room, like an interrogation room, and they like filled it up with like helium to make you talk funny, like you probably wouldn't notice that you're suffocating. You just turn blue and pass out.
Right.
Because your body has CO2, like chemoreceptors that are going to figure out, hey, this is way too much stuff. You're poisoning me. We need to get it out. Because so many people, I think it's oxygen. Like it's sensing the lack of oxygen. When really you have a decent amount of oxygen in your body to survive a couple minutes. But it's the CO2. So was that actually a guess? Or you're just
no, a total guess.
Really? Okay.
That was I could probably make up some rationale for why I chose that, but it was yes.
Okay, there you go. Well, see, I always tell them like you either win or learn, right? So you got it,
both,
or both. I guess. I guess it's what you got a 25% chance.
Sure,
there you go. All right, question 3. Which of the following is a long-term adaptation to aerobic exercise? Is it A, increased capillary density, B, decreased stroke volume, C, decreased mitochondrial function, or D, reduced oxygen uptake efficiency?
A long-term adaptation to aerobic exercise. A doesn't make sense to me. Capillary density. Stroke volume. I'm not really sure what that refers to. I'm assuming heartbeats. Mitochondrial function, decreased mitochondrial function. I wonder if that suggests increased mitochondrial efficiency, or D, reduced oxygen uptake efficiency. Well, that can't be D. It wouldn't be reduced efficiency. It would be increased efficiency. Wild guess, I'm going to say B, because I don't really understand what it means.
Okay, the correct answer was increased capillary density. So when I was training for middle distance running, which is half a mile to a mile, like as fast as you can, we had to do 10-mile long runs up into 14-mile long runs every Sunday. And you're like wondering, what the heck? Why am I doing that? I just have to run for 5 minutes max, right? But the idea is that like medium to low level like aerobic exercise for an extended period of time is going to cause an uptake on mitochondrial synthesis. So you're going to make more mitochondria.
Oh, okay.
But also your capillary networks are going to expand and split and like branch out, so that you're going to have more capillaries around your muscles and oxygen delivery. And then along with the mitochondria synthesis, you're going to have more mitochondria to use that oxygen. So you're going to, this is the misconception when people are talking about energy systems. When you're running an 800, so half a mile as fast as you can, it's usually people go out way too hard and then they burn up and die. And they think, oh no, I'm going anaerobic. I'm burning up. Lactic acid is piling up. That's true. But the reason you're slowing down is because you're reverting back to your aerobic system. Because your anaerobic system is gassed out.
Okay.
Right? Glycolysis like can't keep up with the demand.
Sure.
Too much lactic acid, lactate, and like hydrogen ions building up in your blood. And you have to revert back to the slow way of making energy, right? Which is using oxygen. Right. And the better you are at that, the less you slow down at the later half of the race, right?
Oh, interesting.
So we always had to do capillary networking,
Right.
and we called it like networking. We're networking.
Okay.
We're going for a long run together.
Oh, okay.
And so, yeah, it increases capillary density. And then it's literally, I guess, the opposite of everything else. So stroke volume is, if you multiply stroke volume with heartbeat, you get cardiac output.
Oh, okay.
Right? Stroke volume is how hard your heart beats every beat, and then beats per minute, right? So if you do 8-minute reps, that is like the sweet spot, and I don't know why, but that's strengthening every beat of your heart rate. So if you have a really strong heart, you have a low heart rate, because the cardiac output, it should be the same for your demands. So if you have your resting heart rate is low because your heart is so strong, it only needs 2 pumps or something like that every 2 seconds to work, to get the same amount of oxygen everywhere else. So yeah, man, I didn't know that I would stump you on something, but I did. I'm happy about that. I know something. All right, you ready for question 4?
All right.
These ones are the ones that I thought I was going to stump you with. So I thought these ones are going to be the easy ones.
I'm in trouble.
Question 4. Which of the following abilities is unique to Miles Morales and not part of Peter Parker's natural power set? So Miles Morales is the new Spider.
I know who Miles
Morales is. I didn't know.
Bruh.
So which one of these powers Miles Morales has, but Peter Parker doesn't?
I'm not looking at the options yet, but I know that Miles Morales has a different precognitive ability. He has the ability to camouflage, and he also has like a type of venom sting, I think that it's called. So what are the options here?
A, enhanced agility and reflexes. B, electrokinesis. C, accelerated healing. Or D, resistance to mind control.
So I'm going to go with B, the electrokinesis.
You're absolutely correct. Man, what a turn of events. He guessed through the science ones, and then he got the comic one right away. Oh, okay, good.
If I'm not mistaken, one of the current plot lines in the Miles Morales Spider-Man is actually that he is susceptible to mind control. And it's sort of like a rewriting of some of the old Mysterio storylines where Mysterio is altering Spider-Man's or view of reality, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, they sort of hit that in like a few movies ago with Peter Parker.
Right. Yeah.
I haven't read the Miles Morales ones for a while. The comic book, I'm still waiting for the next volume to come out, but it's Aliens versus Avengers.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it's so good. It's like they have like an alternate universe where the engineers, it ties in with Prometheus. And the aliens, Dr. Doom has like figured out how to weaponize the xenomorphs. Or whatever. And this is like Tony Stark's an old man. Like it's an Elseworld thing.
Okay.
And it's so cool because now a symbiote attached to a facehugger. And now the facehugger attached to Miles Morales.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it is really cool. You should look it up, even if you guys don't like reading comic books or you just don't have the money, man, Comics Explained on YouTube. He like goes through the panels and explains it and walks through it. It's awesome. Yeah. Nice. I listen to it on the way to work sometimes. Like it's good. All right, question 5.
Okay.
So what is the score right now? 3 to 4. 3 out of 4.
Yeah.
Okay. So no Jeopardy.
Progressing.
You got this here. Question 5. Which of the following villains has been host for the Venom symbiote?
Villains has been host.
Is it A, Dr. Octopus, B, Matt Gargan, C, Mysterio, or D, Sandman? Matt Gargan's the Scorpion.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I was a massive Spider-Man fan. Spider-Man was my favorite superhero.
Okay, sweet. That's something we have in common.
I really loved the Sinister Spider-Man storyline where
I bought the entire comic book set for that. And I read it. Oh, wait, not Sinister. I'm sorry, I'm lying. Superior Spider-Man.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay,
you're right.
Doc Ock, he took his body. That was the first comic that I collected issue by issue.
Oh, okay.
And I have the full set.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved that one.
Yeah.
And I loved how it ended.
So cool.
I loved the mindscape battles that he had. It was awesome.
And I loved the fact that Dr. Octavius went, Parker, you're so smart, you lazy tool. why didn't you ever get your PhD?
I remember that. Yeah, he's like he's so insulted by it. Like,
You're wasting all of this potential. And he creates Parker Industries. And
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Which is just my way of deflecting from the fact that I have no idea what the answer to this question is.
Oh. Okay.
Let me guess. Okay, so I was never actually a big fan of the Venom, like Agent Venom and Lethal Protector, and I was never a big fan of those stories. But I do have in Mylar, I do have original editions of the symbiote costume from the Secret Wars series back in the 1980s. And I think it was Peter Parker's Spectacular Spider-Man. The cover of #1 issue I have in Mylar, which is, again, the symbiote costume.
Oh, that's cool.
I don't know. I don't think it could be Sandman. I am going to go with, I want to say between Scorpion and Mysterio. And I don't have any reason for that. I'm just wildly guessing. Well, Mysterio died. He got old and died. Sandman is, depending on the timeline, is somewhere melded with water,
but no one dies forever except Uncle Ben, right?
Except Uncle Ben. Yeah, how many Gwen Stacy's have come back? How many clone sagas are? I'm gonna go with Scorpion, Matt Gargan.
Man, you're correct.
Woo-hoo.
Yeah. So Eddie Brock ended up getting cancer, and he realized that the symbiote was the only thing keeping him alive. And he went through this whole like newborn Christian thing, like because he was like Catholic, and then he like auctioned off the symbiote for like money to donate to charity.
Oh.
And he auctioned it off to like a crime syndicate where Matt Gargan got it and became Venom for like the Kingpin for a while.
Oh, wow.
And then it like got the hands of the government and went to Flash Thompson and stuff like that. So yeah.
Right.
So man,
Venom.
that was such a surprise. But dang it, I actually had no idea you were a Spider-Man fan because I am a huge Spider-Man fan. Like, so you look like right here behind this backwards Carnage mural I got. I have like the VHS tape of the 90s Spider-Man, right? Which is awesome. And then here, the Venom Saga right here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Have you been watching the
Friendly Neighborhood one?
Yeah, the new version from the Disney Overlords?
What I'm waiting for is I'm waiting for it to be completely done, and then I'm watching it, like binge watching.
Oh, okay.
Olivia's at work or something. Like,
hell yeah, yeah.
Oh, I had something to show you here, but I have maybe at home, but I actually have.
I noticed the McFarlane version there. Todd McFarlane was from Calgary, hey?
Really?
Yeah, he grew up. Two of my favorite Spider-Man writers and artists, Todd McFarlane and John Byrne, both grew up in Calgary.
No way.
I think Todd McFarlane lived in Calgary for a while, but spent most of his time in Edmonton.
Because Todd McFarlane is my favorite Venom. Like,
oh, okay. Sure.
I like the black with the blue accents. Okay. I'm not a huge fan of the blue with like the white accents.
Yeah.
But I still love Venom either way.
Yeah.
Because I always like the evil Spider-Man. And like I always thought like he's cooler back in like this and the 90s bulk, like the muscles and like everything like that. But I did have
but I have not the Topher Grace version.
No. I like Tom Hardy though as him.
Yeah.
I like he's a great Venom in terrible movies.
Yeah.
That's what I think of it. I'll still go waste my money and watch it. But
I don't know if it's quite the same, but Tom Hardy Venom reminds me a lot of Henry Cavill anything. Like Henry Cavill is a fan of the genres and the movies that he plays. You know, the Witcher series. The Witcher series with Cavill is far different than the Witcher series with Hemsworth.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's because Cavill has that passion. I'm curious to see the new iteration of Superman because Cavill was a fan of Superman.
Yeah.
And I'm probably saying the guy's name wrong, but
Cavill.
I don't know.
Cavalrine.
But that's right. That might be interesting if the Secret Wars, the Disney Overlords ever produce the Secret Wars, what they're going to do with that. I'm a little bit tired.
Did you like Deadpool and Wolverine though?
Oh yeah,
despite the multiverse stuff, like
absolutely. Yeah, the multiverse stuff is getting a little bit annoying. I went to see the new Captain America.
Yeah, I just did. Yeah,
with the RVS Cares, right? So they offered it up for free to Rockview School staff members at the Cochrane Movie House, and it was fun. Was it an earth-shattering, universe-changing? No. Was I disappointed with Harrison Ford's performance? Perpetually.
that was 3 movies in one, right?
But,
so there were so many rewrites to that movie. The Gustavo Fring, the guy who plays the bad guy in Breaking Bad. He's also a bad guy in. He was never in the original.
Giancarlo.
He was never in the original movie.
Really?
Like they test audience, like they need another villain or something like that to like really amp up the script.
Yeah.
So like that movie got like cut around so much just to make it.
Right.
But like I'm always will watch a Harrison Ford movie.
Yeah.
And Red Hulk is cool. I'll go there for the spectacle. But me and Olivia watched it and I loved it. I thought it was fun.
Yeah.
Like I don't think it was crazy good, but I was like fun. Olivia turns to me, she's like, that was awful. I was like, whatever. I kind of like bad movie. Like, so one movie, and I know you've seen this for whatever reason. I know you've seen it. One movie I really like and everyone hates is The Flash.
Oh,
I liked The Flash.
It was fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like I teared up in The Flash.
Yeah.
As stupid as it is with the CGI babies and the microwaves and everything like that, all that terrible stuff, right? And I think maybe it's because like I'm like in my twilight years of training track and field and stuff like that.
Yep.
And then like coming back for one last ride or whatever. Like I see the Michael Keaton. I also have so much nostalgia for like Tim Burton's Batman.
Yeah.
But like he's like, oh, I'm doing it again. Like one more time, let's do it, right? And it was the season when I was working at Croxford where I was like, and I know you're gonna laugh, but 29 is ancient in track and field.
Okay, sure.
Right? Like, but I was like, I'm gonna do this once more.
Yeah. And
I PB'd and I got all that stuff. I think I've said that on every one of my podcasts. But I really loved it. Like and then there's a scene where Batman like fights a Kryptonian.
Mm-hmm.
And he's obviously outmatched, but he's like the skill set that Batman has is like dropping like mines on him and like it's just a futile thing, but it's like Batman, he's gonna do it. And then the emotional thing that made me tear up in that movie was when Barry 2 or whatever is frantically just trying again to save like his world, right? And like we've all been there where we're like someone has to tell us to stop because we're like, no, we're doing our best to like get this done, and it's futile, and you're so involved in it that you can't see it, right? And then the grocery store scene when he sees his mom and stuff like that, I was like, you can imprint people like in your life of that. And it's such a bad movie, but like I get it. Like I get why someone saw it finish that. I was like, perfect. Like it was good.
Yep.
Yeah. I know. I know you saw that movie, so I thought like,
it was fun. I'm also not a big fanboy of DCU.
No, me either.
So I can enjoy, which isn't a slam.
Yeah.
It's not a shot, but it means that I can enjoy things without saying, well, that's not canon.
Right.
Well, that's not the way that it was written. Well, that's not how, I can, and I think that's why I also enjoyed the new Captain America movie. To me, it was reminiscent of, remember those like late 80s Steven Seagal, Jean-Claude Van Damme.
It's like a Tom Clancy book.
Right? Like it's more about the fight scenes than the actual acting or the dialogue or it was fun.
Cool. Awesome. But yeah, I'm glad I got that tangent out because I wanted to explain that to someone for so long. But I guess what I was originally saying is I have 2 novels of Spider-Man, like like full novels.
Yeah.
One is called like The Venom Factor.
Okay.
And it's like a mystery novel about Peter Parker trying to find Venom.
Okay.
And then there's one, Carnage in New York.
Okay.
And that's like a detective is looking at, and since it's a novel, it's not PG-13 at all.
Right.
So he's seeing like beheadings and stuff like that.
Wow.
And it's carnage.
Oh, cool.
Right.
Yeah.
And then but then you have like the Spider-Man thing in it where he's like like I've never seen like quotation marks with like Spider-Man swearing and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
But it's like an adult novel, but it's Spider-Man. And it was awesome. So I might have to like throw you those.
Yeah,
every once in a
right
while.
on.
Anyway, we've been out here for like almost 2 hours.
Yeah. Holy moly.
Thanks for coming on. It was awesome. We chatted about a bunch of stuff, and man, we gotta catch up without the mic sometime. All right, I
good.
never know how to end these, so I'll just shake your hand and we'll cut it. All right, awesome. Sweet. Thank you for tuning in to Professional Development with me, Mr. Drover. I hope you found today's conversation insightful and inspiring. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share with your fellow educators. You can also connect with me on Instagram or via email to continue the conversation and share your thoughts. Well, until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep making a difference, both inside and outside the classroom. I'll see you in the next episode.